So today we're discussing some of the challenges wealth businesses will face in the coming years due to the expected change in customer behaviour, employee requirements and advancements in tech. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Marianne Oliver, who's the Operations Director at InvestEngine. So thanks for your time today, Marianne. We will be, Simplify with Consulting will shortly be publishing a blog that covers some of the themes that we'll be talking about today. And I thought it'd be useful to speak to someone like yourself to get an understanding of the business perspective on it, so that we can take that into account in terms of what we write within the blog. So there's just a few questions I wanted to talk to you about.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So firstly, where do you think the wealth industry, and I'm thinking, primarily within wealth operations, where do you think they will need to be in, let's say, the next 10 years to satisfy customer changing needs?
It's a really important question, I think. 10 years is a really long event horizon.
Yeah.
Not normally in wealth operations, but currently the environment we're in, I don't think we're seeing such a shift in retail investors to wealth management since I think the 80s was probably the last time that we saw such a seismic shift in retail investment. On the advice side, I think that's where we're going to see the biggest demand and change.
Yeah.
Clients or retail investors are embracing AI technology, for example. They seem to be trusting AI, and obviously traditionally advice has always been about trust and using the information that you've got at your fingertips. With the advancement in advice, we have people have access to the information that they need to understand and educate themselves about wealth, whereas previously there would be barriers, and it would be a lot easier, a lot less time consuming to use an advisor to get that information, and you can trust your advisor for a fee that you're paying them. Now people are more educated, they have more access to information, and therefore they don't feel the need necessary for advice because they can access that information themselves. There's also been shifts with platforms like ourselves where there's low cost entrance fees, for example, where retail investors, you don't have to be wealthy to invest in wealth. Wealth is no longer for the wealthy. So we're seeing a massive shift where previously, it'd be, the demographic of, sort of your middle-aged people that are really taking an interest in their wealth. And now I think with the global economic shift, people understand that investment, property, pensions, they need to start thinking about that at a much younger age. And I think this next generation of investors really are embracing that. So we as an industry, we need to think about how we're communicating with those clients, what are the tools that we can use to do that, and how do we provide those changes to those clients. They expect things to be done at their fingertips at a click of a button. So wealth management firms need to have an operations model that supports that. They're gone are the days of overnight batch processing, everything is done, there's no barriers to latency, etc., etc. So wealth operations really needs to scale down on resource and scale up on technology to be able to meet those demands from the retail investment. And it needs to happen now. I don't think in 10 years' time, if people are forecasting for 10 years in the future, they're not going to be around in 10 years.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so on that then, Marianne, so what do you think the most important skills for the workforce will be to complement some of the kind of tech advancements that you've kind of referenced there?
Yeah, so the workforce, are the retail investors. Okay, so they expect to be able to come into a wealth management firm and have the technology that allows them to do their jobs. That being said, one of my key frustrations when hiring university leavers as an example. So
Yeah.
we'll have people who've got good degrees in business management that can't write an Excel function, and that I feel really has to change. So we see it in the schools now. Children are learning how to code, and that will be great. But if they learn that at 15, by the time they've gone through university, technology will have advanced so much that they won't be able to adopt that into the workforce. So we really need, universities to be thinking about that when, some degrees, they need to be more practical than just the purely academic. But I think hopefully as advancements in the technology, people generally become more skilled. So the wealth firms can provide the technology, but they need their workforce to understand the technology that's available to them.
Yeah, and do you foresee that being a shift in terms of the skill sets that you look when hiring people, or do you see it being actually you're going to need to train and do things slightly differently with the staff that you hire, or do you think it'll be a bit of a mix of the two?
Well, at a fintech firm that we're technology first, so we're very close to the technology.
Yeah,
So, understanding what a data table is, something as simple as that. But certainly, you've seen it on every single job specification for operations in the last 10 years must have experience of Microsoft, and you do see university leavers that struggle with basic Word and Excel skills. So previously I've always asked staff, can you write an Excel function? Going forward, I think, now that changes to, do you understand SQL?
yeah.
Show me where you have been able to take the technology and actually, not just suggest improvements, but understand how simple it will be for the developers to make those changes, because that's all about prioritization, and it's really key that the people that are using the technology understand what the capabilities of that technology are.
Yeah, spot on. Okay. And so shifting away slightly from tech for a moment and looking at kind of the workforce and their changing requirements, I think we've kind of observed that there's been some changes, probably driven by COVID in recent years, around flexible working and I guess the demand from the employee side of it. How do you think that that's going to evolve? And are you already starting to see some of those changes in the last few years?
Absolutely. Coming from a legacy institutional firm where, working from home wasn't discouraged, it was banned, and I think a lot of firms have to really think about why that is that they don't trust their own staff. Then, they've got a bigger issue. I joined InvestEngine in 2019, and we were already a remote firm then.
Yeah.
So we already had that model in place. So we weren't impacted by the pandemic in the way that a lot of firms were. So what's interesting to see is now, firms, legacy institutional firms, offer flexible hybrid remote situations. However, if you tell your staff you have to be in the office a certain amount of days, and you're monitoring that activity, and you're setting those days which those individuals have to, say, I will be in those days, and then, manage calendars around that, that's not flexibility. That's not hybrid working. That's not how it should be. Um, I want, as a manager, when I'm running a lean operations team, we always want a lean operations team. There's going to be times when your staff need to work additional hours. Now,
Yeah.
if I'm going to ask my staff to work additional hours, I want them to have the same confidence that they can ask me for additional time off, whether that's to leave a couple of hours early to catch a flight, whether that's to work from home on a specific date because they've got some personal life admin, whether it's something to do, they've been up all night fighting with their partner, or sadly just had a bereavement. I want them to feel confident that they can still be productive by working from home. So, the bottom line productivity is not impacted, but yet they can still feel comfortable in that environment and know that it's not going to be, negatively impacted on how the business views that individual. So I know legacy individual firms have a lot of considerations that I don't have with regards to property overheads, et cetera, and commitments and things like that. But really, I think the culture that we're in society-wise now is it's all about reason. What is reasonable? Is it reasonable that I have to come in on a Tuesday because I said 6 months ago that I was coming in on a Tuesday? Is it reasonable that I can leave early because, my child's sick? That was always a favourite one. And it's like, well, if you were working from home and your child was sick, of course you can leave early to go and pick that child up. And if you show that kind of loyalty and respect, and that individual enjoys working in that culture, when they return from the daycare or what have you, they'll probably log back on to check their emails, and they want to be able to finish off their work at a time that suits them. There's a lot of work that can be done out with office hours. So there's absolutely no need, I don't think, for firms to be as regimented as some are. So I really do hope that we see, embracing employees as humans first and understanding their needs and using the technology. Everyone's got fibre broadband at home. Some people's home broadband's better than it is in the office. Zoom calls, utilize that technology to make sure that people are working in a culture that they feel appreciated, and they want to work hard for you.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the human first analogy. I think that's quite a powerful message. It comes down to, I guess, trust, doesn't it, and treating people as humans, and bearing in mind that everyone's got their own needs and requirements.
Sorry,
And it's
what I
give and
would
take.
Yeah, so what I would like to add on the back of that as well is, if you build that trust and loyalty, people see coming into the office as a treat as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially young people who are potentially flat sharing, or they like the social aspect, going for a couple of beers after work potentially, or having a quick five-a-side game or something like that. Then they enjoy coming into the office, and it doesn't feel like it's a chore. And again, it just puts that positive spin on the culture of the firm as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And just final question, Marianne, because it kind of brings some of this all together, I guess. So how do you think businesses will balance the needs of kind of customer, the business themselves, include kind of regulation within that, its employees, but also the utilization of tech advancement? How do you think you kind of balance as a business all of those kind of competing demands? Or some of them are competing, some of them complement each other. But I guess, how do you holistically view those areas when kind of deciding what you're going to do as a business moving forward?
Well, I think if I could answer that in a couple of minutes on a podcast, I'd be Ned of all the board of directors in the city, right? So that's the challenge that we face as a senior management exec. Okay, so as you said quite rightly, some of those needs are complementary. Business needs, regulation is often seen as kind of a weight on firms, where I'm a great proponent of the FCA. I think the work that they do really protects our industry and makes it really attractive to retail investors as well as overseas large institutional firms. So, the work that they've done recently with regards to consumer duty, that improves the customer journey. So those things complement each other. So we're now using, powerful tools, AI mostly, to monitor sentiment, identify fraud, identify vulnerable clients. And all of those things are beneficial, not only to the end investor, but also to us as a company as well. So it is finding that right balance. Do we build our own AI? Do we get a off-the-shelf package for AI? How best do we embrace this technology to utilize it? But that's the conversations that we've been having for decades, right? So, I think, if you have good culture in the company and you can maintain that, then that is a massive headache that you don't need to worry about, and you know that you've got a engaged, proactive workforce that are going to be productive. And the customers at the end of the day are going to feel that. When you feel like you're producing a really quality product that you're proud of, the retail investor is going to experience that as well. And so that, you know, that all relates to AUM increases and growth and things like that. So it's a never-ending circle and review improvements, and it's how we every company faces that challenge.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Marianne. Really great to hear your kind of insight and your perspective on things, and try and understand actually how some of these things may play out from the business side of things. So certainly some useful information we can take forward there. So yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Matt. I really enjoyed that chat.